Hi, I'm Dale and these are my books. I don't have an appropriate prop for this one, so I will hold up the No Fear Shakespeare book because I think this series is really good, but this is actually a review of Twelfth Night. This is a play by William Shakespeare, and for those who have been exposed to Shakespeare and who are a little bit intimidated by Shakespeare, this is a really good play. So lots of spoilers in this play. The idea of this video is to help you read the play or to watch the play if you haven't done so far. First of all, when I approached this play, I went to Wikipedia as I normally do, and I saw what the story was. And I read the story and I found that it really didn't stick with me. I read it a couple of times. I really couldn't absorb a lot of the information. And one of the reasons, I think, is because the names of the characters are slightly different. I'm not used to them. So, for example, one of the characters is called Viola. Now, never in my life have I met someone called Viola. Um, Another character is called Cesario. I've never met a Cesario. There is another character, Sebastian. Perhaps I have met a Sebastian in my life. In fact, I have met a Sebastian or two in my life, but they're not very common names. And so I found typing out the names to really help with coming to grips with the story. What is the story about? First of all, it's a comedy. So the rampant, noisy sword fights, the men with very loud, shouty voices. You don't get any of that. It's just a slapstick comedy with lots of puns and with lots of rude jokes. And it's a very approachable play for that reason. So, what is the synopsis of the story? It's fairly simple. Two twins are in a shipwreck and they land on an island. And I saw this in a pub. There is a theatre production company in Sydney, Australia, and they go around from pub to pub and they put on the works of Shakespeare. I will give some information about them in a bit. And I found that really good. So in the play, they arrive on a camera in a land called Illyrium, except in the pub version of the play that I saw, it was actually Kangaroo Island. They change the details a little bit. And there are two twins. So the twins arrive on this land, and one of them's a young man and one of them's a young woman. The young man sort of disappears at the beginning of the play and doesn't really come back until the end. And then the action focuses on the young woman. Now, this young woman dresses as a young man. So I'm going to call this person the trans boy. Now, I'm not getting into the gender politics or anything of that here, and I'm not being anachronistic. I'm not suggesting she was transgender or he was transgender, but I'm just calling this character the trans boy to help us remember who it is. The trans boy dresses as a boy and gets a job with the Duke. And the Duke quite likes the trans boy quite likes the Duke. And they have an employer-employee relationship. The Duke, meanwhile, really fancies a countess, a local countess. But the countess has no interest in this Duke whatsoever. Whenever the Duke appears at the countess's accommodation in order to woo her, the countess says she's not feeling well and she can't see the Duke, and in fact she can't see the Duke for the next 7 years because she's mourning for her recently deceased dead brother. So we have a bit of a love triangle here. The Duke fancies the Countess. The messenger in the middle is the trans boy. The trans boy fancies the Duke. Meanwhile, the Countess, thinking the trans boy is a boy, fancies the trans boy. So we can see that if we had letters of the alphabet here, then it would be A, the Duke, fancying B, the Countess, and there's also the ship direct transboy. Let's call him 1, or her 1. She, he, her 1. So A fancies B, B fancies 1, 1 fancies A. So you can see it's the perfect love triangle of people being fancied by one other person and each person fancying one other person, but there's no mutual fancy between any of the two people. And that's the play. That's the entire play. There is a subplot. One of the Countess's relatives, as well as a hanger-on and a number of her employees, they like to party. And there is a character called Malvolio, another character whose name I've never met someone called Malvolio. He is very puritanical, and he really tells people off for drinking too much and partying too late at night and so on. So the Countess's employees and the relative, Sir Toby Belch, decides to play a game, play a prank on him. So they forge a letter from the Countess to her employee, the puritanical servant, the overseer, and the prank is a forged letter purporting to come from the Countess, saying, "You, Malvolio, my servant, I really love you. I really love you so much. But there are some things you can do for me that would make my life so much better. For example, you can dress in yellow. You can have a certain pattern on your breeches. And whenever I'm in your presence, you can smile. You can just smile all the time." And Malvolio does this. And the Countess believes that Malvolio has just gone mad, and they lock him up for the duration of the play. It's worthwhile pausing here just to focus on one of the rude jokes that Shakespeare comes up with. When Malvolio is looking at the forged letter, he is deciding whether or not this is actually his employer's, that is, the Countess's handwriting. And he says, obviously it is the Countess's handwriting. I know her handwriting. I recognise her C's and the letter C. And I recognise her U's, the letter U. And then he says, this is also the case with her T's. In fact, I would recognise her C-U-N-T anywhere, or words to that effect. And you can see, if you actually spell out the word, that this is referring to a very rude word, which is probably not acceptable on YouTube. But that's the sort of wordplay and the sort of puns and the sort of jokes that are throughout this play. It's good if you don't like the other Shakespeare plays, because this is a comedy. And again, it's puns, it's fun time, it's a bit of slapstick. But you need to put a little effort to work, you need to put in a little effort to work out who the characters are and who's doing what to whom. But it's relatively straightforward and relatively easy, and don't get too distracted by the subplot. There's another very good thing about this play, which actually quite surprised me. There is a version of this play which I listened to through Audible, and the version of the play is a bunch of actors sitting around a table reading it out, so you're not distracted by sound effects and that sort of thing. You're just listening to the voice. And after about 20 minutes, I thought, hang on a sec, I understand all of this. I understand what's going on. Oh, I see. They've cleaned up the language. They've made it more modern. So what I did then was that I listened to the audio while reading the actual play. And I discovered, no, this is just Shakespearean language, except it's not full of phrases and so on that you don't understand. It's really quite straightforward language. And so it's a very easy play to read and understand, and it's a very easy play to listen to and understand. So in that way, it is not like Macbeth, or it's not like Hamlet, or Julius Caesar, or the history plays. It seems to be in a much more modern type of English. I'm sure there are experts who might disagree with me, but from a layperson's perspective, it was a lot easier to listen to. So I hope that's helped with Twelfth Night. I was fortunate to see this play, or an adaptation of the play, in a pub um, called the Shakespeare Hotel in Surrey Hills in Sydney. So I would recommend Twelfth Night as a Shakespeare play. It's a fun play to watch. And if you do um, live locally to the area, do think of checking out this theatre production company when they in the area. I hope this has been of help.